I sat motionless, feeling trapped as my wife of 25 years explained the reasons behind serving me divorce papers. I struggled to fully comprehend her words. She noticed my distraction and asked if I was present. I apologized, admitting I had zoned out. She reiterated the terms of the divorce, emphasizing their clarity and non-negotiability. She insisted I keep the house, cars, and all the money in the bank. She urged me to sign, assuring me the process would be finalized in 3 months. Speechless, I reflected on our life together. Marcy and I had been together since high school, raising our twin daughters, Cindy and Sandy, who went off to Columbia University. We had a cozy suburban home, both drove Volvos, and Marcy had her own credit cards and phone. I never denied her anything, never strayed or mistreated her. She never seemed discontented or voiced any grievances. This blindsided me. Perhaps that was the issue. I hadn't paid enough attention. I get the mechanics of divorce, Marcy, but can you at least explain why? It might be too late to change anything, but I want to understand. Marcy slouched into a kitchen chair, clearly avoiding the conversation, hoping I'd just sign and let her go. Give me something, Marcy. What did I do? You didn't do anything, Alan. You were perfect. Sometimes I wished you'd slip up so I'd have a reason to leave, but you never did. You did a great job with the kids and put them through college. You always gave me what I wanted, even when I was difficult. You got us a nice house. My folks love you. Don't think you're at fault because you're not. She appeared about 45, with flawless skin and perfectly styled light brown hair gleaming in the sunlight. She jogged often, maintaining a toned physique and tan. Weekdays found her casually dressed, but she could glam up when she chose. Marcy thought she was as perfect as me, or so she said. I couldn't fathom what was truly happening. I'm sorry, but this doesn't add up. There has to be a reason. You can't just brush it off like that. There's more to it. Alan, I'm trying to spare your feelings and save face. Let's leave it at that. No, Alan, I found someone else. He's a real estate developer with a swanky apartment overlooking the river and a sleek black Mercedes. He's attractive, wealthy, and head over heels for me. You've always been, and still are, a grocery store clerk. I'm not knocking your job. You've always provided and made us comfortable, but you'll always be a clerk. I wanted more. I never saw you strive for more. It hurt. Even though I managed the grocery department, she still saw me as just a clerk. When offered a chance to advance and move away, I declined to keep our family together. Look how that ended up. It stung, but I didn't think it was worth mentioning. Does this wealthy, good-looking guy have a name? Clayton Manning. He's the president of Keystone Development Company. How long have you known him? 6 months. Did you sleep with him? Marcy sat up straight in her chair. Her eyes scanned the room before locking onto mine. Yes, I've been avoiding this, but since you insist, yes, we were still married. Yes, I cheated on you. I was unfaithful. Are you satisfied now? I sat for a moment, then reached for the divorce papers, signing them in 3 places, initialing 2, and passing them to her across the table. I think he's better suited for you. Sorry to disappoint. I rose and left the room. As I exited, Marcy yelled, No, that's not why. He wasn't better than you, just different. Don't you dare believe that, Alan. Don't you dare. By then, I was out the door. I was so engrossed in my work and hobbies that I didn't even notice Marcy gradually moving her things out of the house. By the time she handed me the papers, she had already relocated most of her clothes and personal belongings to Clayton's apartment. She left behind all the wedding and family photos so I could enjoy them while she was gone. Upon returning home, she was nowhere to be found. Her Volvo remained in the driveway, and I assumed she wouldn't need it anymore. On the kitchen table, she had left a power of attorney to sell the house and car. I spent the rest of the night disposing of the beer in the refrigerator. By then, I realized there was no turning back, and I didn't want to either. Marcy was gone and would be gone the next morning. I contacted work and took 3 months of overdue vacation. They had been urging me to take time off, so there was no issue. I had plenty of vacation and sick leave. I quickly called the girls at school and briefly explained that we were parting ways, but refused to divulge more details. They wanted to call Marcy, but I didn't have her new phone number. With 3 months ahead to gather myself and figure out my next steps, I disconnected my landline, changed my cell phone number, and canceled the one Marcy had. The Volvo dealer assessed the low book value of Marcy's car. I had a high school friend, Terry, who was now a real estate broker. He agreed to sell the house without listing it at a low price and with a quick settlement. As a precaution, I canceled all my credit cards and opened new bank accounts. I cashed in my life insurance policies. It was time to get things in order. I went through the house and collected everything that might belong to my wife. There was enough stuff to fill 3 trash bags. I packed the girls' personal belongings into boxes and stored them in the closet next to the house. I spent 3 hours sorting through family photos, putting all the girls' pictures in a box for them. All of Marcy's pictures went into the trash can. It might have been foolish, but I didn't care. The primary issue I faced was a lack of direction. I had no idea what I would do after 3 months. Would I stay here or leave? Would I continue working or seek something new? I had 2 hobbies. I mainly collected coins, especially those with an Indian head on them. They were easy to collect and readily available. I bought and sold them on eBay and enjoyed it. My other passion was geocaching. It gave me an excuse to get outside and exercise. Marcy hated this activity because of ticks, poison ivy, and walking. I didn't see how I could make a living doing any of these activities. When I wasn't occupied with my hobbies, I devoted time to reading the Wall Street Journal. Cindy and Sandy gifted me a subscription every Christmas. While I had no interest in stocks and bonds, I absorbed everything related to farm commodities. I possessed more knowledge about sugar, wheat, and corn than most market analysts. However, it remained merely a hobby as I had no investments in it. My research extended to Keystone Development and Clayton Manning. Terry Davis unearthed more information about Clayton and his latest project than I could ever manage, delving into details with a friend at a local bank. I eagerly awaited his findings. Weeks passed without any sign of Marcy. The girls called weekly, but their mom remained silent. I felt their support, yet they still had to show loyalty to their mother. Holding a few yard sales, I cleared out many items, leaving enough furniture to maintain the house's appeal to potential buyers. Marcy and Clayton's photo appeared in the society section of the Sunday paper, attending a political rally with local dignitaries. After a couple more weeks, Terry presented a lowball offer on the house, well below its appraisal, but with a 60-day closing, which suited me. He had intriguing information about Clayton and proposed a lunch meeting. I figured I needed a break from the house and accepted. Hayes Mountain stood out as a prime location for hiking and geocaching. Although I'd already found all the geocaches there, 3 landmarks remained to be discovered. Landmarks, metal rods set in concrete, scattered across the country, aiding surveyors and real estate professionals in delineating property lines. Locating these landmarks was akin to a bonus quest for dedicated geocachers. Today, I resolved to track down all 3 landmarks on the mountain, equipped with my GPS and a metal detector. Hayes Mountain, nearly 2,000 acres in size, mostly belonged to the Madison Land Trust, which relied on donations to preserve its expanse amidst encroaching urban development. Adjacent to the trust's parking area, an orchard and farmhouse were up for sale, marked by a prominent sign. As I parked, I wandered over to the orchard fence, feeling a pang of sadness at the prospect of this picturesque site succumbing to development. "Are you considering buying it or just enjoying the view?" came a voice from behind. I turned to see an elderly man approaching, dressed in overalls and a John Deere cap. I chuckled. "If I had $1 million, I'd snatch it up in a heartbeat," I replied. He grinned back. "Do you think you'll have any trouble selling it?" he asked. "Well, I've got some interested parties, but I'm holding out as long as I can," I replied. "Why's that?" I inquired. "I was hoping the land trusts would acquire it, but they're short on cash. They want to preserve the fruit trees as they are, but the developers want to bulldoze everything," he said. "I think it'd be a real asset to the area," I remarked. "But how can the trust compete with those big companies?" he explained. "I've offered them a good deal, even though it's listed for $1 million. I'm willing to let them have it for $600,000, but they're struggling to gather the cash in time," he replied. "If they can't, then that real estate guy gets his hands on it," he grumbled. "He's been pestering me every week." "An option isn't a sure thing, right?" I asked. "Nope," he said. "He pays $100,000 for the option to buy it later for $1 million. If he can't come up with the cash, he loses that money. It's a good deal for me, but I don't want him to succeed," he added. "He's got the funds locked up, so he's in the clear. The problem is, he needs all 6 properties for the deal to go through. That's why he's offering more than it's worth." "What if you don't sell him the option?" I inquired. "He'll be in serious trouble," the old man chuckled. "If he doesn't get that lot, the whole deal falls apart and he loses everything. He's invested maybe $1 million. His backers will bail and you'll be left high and dry." "I'd help you out if I could," I said sympathetically. "Appreciate it," he replied, sounding somewhat resigned. "They all say that." We shared another laugh, and I set off on my walk. His mention of Keystone caught my attention. The landmarks were about a mile apart, at least as the crow flies. But on the mountain, it felt more like 2 miles. Locating the first 2 markers was easy. They were typical surveyor's markers, but the third one? That was a different story. It was older, harder to find, buried under years of forest debris. When I finally stumbled upon it, I discovered a small brick monument with a bronze plaque attached. It was concealed beneath layers of leaves and dirt. I snapped a picture, thinking it might be worth sharing in a magazine. And then everything changed. As I moved away from the marker, my metal detector started beeping. It was faint, but it was definitely there. I slipped on my headphones and began scanning the nearby area. After some poking around, I unearthed a small iron box wrapped in oil-soaked canvas. It was rusty but sturdy, with a heavy bronze lock. Normally, discoveries like this on public land are considered treasures and handed over to the authorities. But for some reason, that didn't feel right to me. So I tucked the box into my bag and headed home. On the way back, I couldn't stop wondering about the contents of my little discovery. Gold coins, historic documents from the Civil War. The possibilities were endless, limited only by the size of the container. Back at home, I cleared the kitchen table and carefully inspected my discovery. I hesitated to damage the lock, but seeing no other way in, I reluctantly decided to use my bolt cutter. Inside the box, beneath another layer of oiled canvas, lay a dozen pennies. But these were no ordinary pennies. They were large cents dating as far back as 1793. Surprisingly, they were in excellent condition, showing no signs of green corrosion. Although I typically favored Indian head pennies for their value, I recalled a book my grandfather left me titled The Quirks of the Penny, which explored various types and varieties of large cents. I found the book dull as I didn't possess any of the coins it described. Yet tonight, it would finally serve a purpose. I stayed up until dawn, studying the pages with my grandfather's book and a magnifying glass. Using my scanner, I captured detailed high-resolution photos of each coin, revealing every tiny imperfection on the stamps and showcasing the condition of each coin. I slept in until noon, feeling refreshed, yet eager to check in on work. Upon calling, I learned that Phil Williams, a company executive, had inquired about me. However, with more pressing matters at hand, I didn't dwell on it. Acquiring a safe deposit box from the bank became my next priority. After extensive online research, I was astonished to discover that my pennies were valued at several $1 million, not just due to their age, but also their condition and stamp varieties. It made me understand why criminals went to great lengths to launder money. Converting my coins into cash wouldn't be easy. Over breakfast at IHOP, I noticed another photo in the paper of Marcy and Clayton at an art gallery opening, triggering my next move. Once the safe arrived, I contacted John Smart and asked him to delay any decisions about the land for a few days, which he agreed to. Then, I visited the land trust office to explore making a donation, to which they were enthusiastic. With the final divorce just 4 weeks away, I felt a sense of urgency. The remainder of the day was spent researching coin dealers and auction houses for any signs of trouble. Eventually, I settled on Towers and Burns in New York City, as they seemed equipped to handle controversial sales. Discreetly, I arranged an appointment with them for Monday afternoon to cap off the day. I called the girls and organized lunch together on Monday morning, keeping the morning free. Upon arriving at Towers and Burns, I was impressed by the modern, sophisticated showroom. After providing my name, I was escorted to a less glamorous section of the building. "Welcome to New York, Mr. Simmons. I hear you have some intriguing coins to show us. Is this your first visit to the city?" I took a seat opposite James Towers. Though his face was familiar from ads, he appeared a bit older now. "Thank you. My daughters attend Columbia University, so I've been here before, but never for business. While I don't doubt your expertise in coins, do you have a team member who specializes in early copper coins? Having them present could be beneficial." I'm not too touchy about it, and I think that's a great idea. He signaled to the intercom. Murray, could you have Cookson join us in my office? Maurice Cookson, known for his guides on large cents and half cents, soon entered. He appeared older than his photos, but then again, who doesn't mind looking younger? I have 12 special coins to sell today. I hope to sell 4 and keep the 5th for your consideration. The rest I'll retain for now. If today goes well, I'll offer those to you as well. I know it sounds incredible, but I believe 6 of them will qualify for conditional census status. Mr. Cookson can confirm whether I'm correct. Where did these coins originate? James inquired. They were handed down to me by my grandfather upon his passing, I responded. Not to cast doubt, Mr. Simmons, but the story is a bit hard to believe. Can you display what you have? I laid out 4 photos on the table, each exhibiting both sides of one of the coins I'm offering today. They were enlarged about 5 times their actual size and crystal clear. James and Morris scrutinized each photo carefully for several minutes. So what's your asking price for these 4? James asked. A quick glance at recent auctions suggests I could fetch about $1.3 million for them. I initially thought $1 million, but your figure isn't out of the realm of possibility, Morris remarked. He really knows his stuff when it comes to pennies, James added. I'm willing to offer $800,000 for the lot, but under one condition. What sort of condition are we talking about? I inquired. I have a special letter from the Land Trust about donating land. I'd like you to take a look at it, along with an advertisement for John Smart's orchard, I said, handing them over. I'd like you to purchase this plot of land and donate it to the Madison Land Trust. The price is $600,000. You'll score a hefty tax deduction and earn some serious karma points. Give us a moment, please, James said, motioning to Morris. They huddled at the far end of the room, deep in conversation, and after a few minutes, Morris stepped out and James returned to the table. Do you have any coins on you? He asked. Yes, and I've got a 5th one I'd like to keep in the mix, I replied. Mr. Cookson reappeared with a purple crown royal bag. We're willing to honor your terms on the land deal and hope you'll do the same on the coin deal, he said, dumping the bag's contents onto the table. It was a treasure trove of nearly 100 coins, mostly gold, with some silver mixed in. The retail value of this collection is around $300,000, James explained. For various reasons, we've had trouble selling them, but you shouldn't have any issues. You've sold coins on eBay before, right? I nodded. Your grandfather's coins should fly off the shelves, and we'll both come out ahead, James said with a wink. After some consideration, I agreed. I handed over the 4 pennies to Mr. Towers, and we sealed the deal with handshakes all around. Now, Mr. Simmons, tell us about this 5th coin, James prompted. I held up the photo and described it as the top-rated 1793 strawberry coin I'd ever seen. I rated it an 8, but I'm no expert, I added. Both James and Maurice leaned in, eager to see the photo. Morris had a big grin, and James had a twinkle in his eye. How much? James asked. Best offer, as long as you can figure out how to pay me, I replied. Would you like some coffee, Mr. Simmons? Letitia, an absolutely stunning woman, asked as she entered the room. Sure, black's fine, I replied. They left the room. About 30 minutes later, James returned with Letitia. Letitia Rothberg introduced herself and inquired about Mr. Simmons's possession of a passport. He confirmed that he did indeed have one. She then informed him that they would soon be heading to JFK to establish a new offshore bank account for him. Letitia also asked if he had anything for Mr. Towers. Mr. Simmons handed over the 1793 strawberry, which elicited excitement from James. He expressed his gratitude before leaving the room. Although they didn't agree on a price, Towers showed great enthusiasm for the 7 coins. Mr. Towers agreed to hold on to the small bag of coins until Simmons returned. Shortly after, Letitia and Mr. Simmons found themselves seated on a plane headed for the Cayman Islands. She didn't say much during the flight. When we landed, photographers were clamoring to snap her picture. She seemed both irritated and amused by the attention. I was clueless as to why she was such a celebrity. It was my first time flying first class, and it was over in a flash. A bright yellow mini SUV awaited us at the terminal. Letitia wasted no time hopping into the driver's seat, flashing her tanned legs in the process. I couldn't help stealing glances. Feeling a bit flustered, she seemed to find my discomfort amusing. 20 minutes later, we arrived at a mid-sized condo building. Letitia owned the entire building but used the top floor as her personal space. "Care for anything, Mr. Simmons?" she asked as she left the room. Watching her leave was just as captivating as seeing her foot in the terminal. I'm not one to gush over women, but Letitia Rothberg was captivating. We stepped onto a small balcony overlooking the ocean. It was stunning, but the wind was a bit much for my liking. She was probably trying to impress me with the luxurious surroundings, but my mind was more on the new bank account. "You're not much of a talker, Mr. Simmons. Don't you have any questions?" she asked. "It strikes me as odd that someone of your stature would drink beer from a bottle," I remarked. "I'd imagine you sipping champagne or martinis instead." "I usually think it's best to wait, but I suppose you could tell me why we had to come here to open a bank account," I added. "It's a simple, secure place to stash your cash. I think it'll serve you well," she replied. "You've got 7 more coins after all. That still seems like overkill," I admitted. To my relief, we headed back indoors, away from the wind. "Can you handle this?" Letitia suddenly asked, catching me off guard. "I brought you here to be myself for a few days." Her unexpected comment brought a smile to my face. I knew she was joking, but it was a humorous moment nonetheless. She had a great sense of humor, looked stunning, and had a fortune to boot. What more could a guy ask for? "If only I were a decade younger. Teasing an old man won't do any good," I joked, and we both chuckled at the situation. "Come on, Mr. Simmons, let's go grab some fresh lobsters for dinner," she suggested, and we downed the last of our long necks before heading out the door. The restaurant was amazing, but the wine the hostess selected didn't agree with me. I tried to handle it politely, but my discomfort must have been evident. "What's wrong with the wine, Mr. Simmons?" she inquired. "I'm sorry, it's just a reflex. When I was 18, I got sick on cheap white wine, and ever since the smell or taste of it makes me nauseous," I explained. "But don't worry about it. It's good wine." A few minutes later, we were served 2 fresh long necks. Strangely, there wasn't much conversation during the meal. Afterwards, we each had a slice of key lime pie and sipped coffee. "So, tell me about yourself. Are you married? Any kids? What do you do for a living?" she asked, eager to know more about me. "We've got all night, and I'm curious about how we ended up here," she added. "That's quite a few questions," I chuckled. "I have 2 daughters, both studying something related to international banking at Columbia University. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure what they're studying. I just pay the bills." "That's interesting. I actually hold a master's degree from Columbia and occasionally lecture there. I've met both of my daughters," I continued. "Did you see them this morning?" she asked. "We had lunch together. They're not too thrilled when I make them skip class," I replied with a smile. "You must have married early if you have 2 daughters in college," she observed. "Yeah, it does sound like a movie line," I chuckled. I felt comfortable with this Mediterranean beauty. I could have conversed with her for hours. As for me, I'm currently separated from my wife. It feels strange to say, I admitted. She left me for some wealthy wheeler dealer. He's probably into building shopping malls or business complexes, judging by his fancy car and big apartment. She said she's moving on, and the divorce should be finalized in about 4 weeks. "That's a flimsy reason to end a good marriage," she remarked sympathetically. "Yeah, I thought everything was fine, until she met this guy. I guess she was never satisfied with my career choice," I reflected. I had opportunities to advance, but she didn't want to budge. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I thought it was necessary to save the marriage. Now I just feel empty. "And what about you?" I asked, shifting the focus back to her. There was a moment of silence. "How do you tell a beautiful, wealthy, successful woman that you manage a grocery store?" She noticed my discomfort and reassured me, saying, "It's not a big deal. We can discuss it later." "No, it's okay. I'm not ashamed of my profession," I reassured her. "It's just that managing a supermarket as a grocery manager isn't exactly a glamorous job that impresses the ladies. My daughters don't mind, but my wife often conveniently forgot to mention it in conversations. I could tell it bothered her. "Do you find satisfaction in your work?" she inquired, as the server brought more coffee and cleared the table. "Yeah, I do, and I'm pretty proficient at it," I replied. "Mr. Simmons, I know we've just met, but I believe first impressions matter. So what's your initial impression of me?" she asked. Her question put me in a bit of a dilemma. If I expressed my genuine thoughts, I might push her away. But if I attempted to flatter her, she'd see through it and perceive me as insincere. What should I do? In summary, I see you as beautiful, intelligent, educated, and confident, I said, noticing a slight smirk on her face as she tilted her head down and looked up at me. I was hoping for honesty, she confessed. I'm sorry, but we were having such a pleasant evening. I didn't want to spoil it, I apologized. Do you truly have such a low opinion of me? She questioned, her tone becoming serious. Maybe that's why your wife left you for another man. If you hadn't always tried to please her, your marriage would have been stronger. Her words stung, but I had to acknowledge there was some truth to them. You use your beauty and charm to achieve your goals. You're accustomed to getting your way, and I sense a hint of entitlement. You play with men, but fear commitment, yet you seem astute with finances, understanding how to spend and invest wisely. If you weren't so determined to prove yourself equal to any man, you might actually make a good mother, I said, feeling uneasy, but also somewhat annoyed by her earlier comment about my marriage. After a moment of silence, they exchanged looks, and she softened her tone, questioning if he genuinely believed she would make a good mother. As they drove back to the condo, the tension dissipated, and the atmosphere lightened. Their night together turned out uneventful due to separate bedrooms, which suited him fine as he hadn't expected anything. The following morning, he woke to find breakfast waiting for him along with a copy of the Wall Street Journal. Enjoying the tranquility on the balcony, he noticed the wind had died down. About 20 minutes later, Letitia joined him, playfully taking a section of the newspaper as they settled in. They quietly read and savored their coffee, as if it were a routine they'd been following for years. Despite their brief acquaintance, everything felt natural and effortless with her. He mentioned without hesitation that his phone didn't work there, and he wanted to call his daughters. Letitia offered me her cell phone and told me it was mine to use. Anxiously, I asked Cindy where she was and if everything was okay. Cindy explained that she was in the Cayman Islands, staying with a friend, and had to use her friend's phone because hers was acting up. I pushed further, mentioning that a picture of her boarding a plane with Letitia Rothberg was shown on TV the previous night, asking what was happening. Cindy responded that Letitia was the friend she mentioned and questioned why it was a big deal. I cautioned Cindy about being cautious and warned her about Letitia Rothberg's reputation as a ruthless person as Letitia passed by with the breakfast tray. I introduced Letitia to Cindy as my daughter and mentioned that Cindy was in New York. Upon hearing Letitia's name, Cindy groaned over the phone, and I could hear her and her sister Sandy discussing something quickly on the other end. "Why are you there? How do you know her? Are you coming home?" Cindy bombarded me with questions. Before I could answer, Letitia was already reaching for the phone. "Hi, Cindy. It's Letitia. Your dad told me about you and your sister. I'll be in New York tomorrow and would love to have lunch with both of you. Where should I pick you up?" Of course, I couldn't hear Cindy's response from my end of the conversation. "Okay, Cindy, talk to you later. Bye," Letitia said, handing me back my cell phone. "Your daughter said goodbye. Looks like we're having lunch tomorrow. I'll be on my best behavior, even if they think I'm a shark," she chuckled, heading to her room. An hour later, we found ourselves at the Federal Reserve Bank of the Cayman Islands. With Letitia guiding me, I established my first offshore bank account. 20 minutes later, I saw that my new account had been credited with $4 million from Towers and Burns. It seemed like a fair price for 215 pennies. After our meal, she arranged for a friend to take us to feed manta rays. Over dinner, I asked about her job at Towers and Burns, and learned that she actually owns 60% of the company. "So what else can you tell me about yourself?" I prodded, feeling somewhat embarrassed about my lack of knowledge regarding her. "I was born and raised in London. My dad's Syrian and my mom's Turkish. I hold an MBA from Columbia University. Relationship-wise, I've been engaged twice but haven't been in anything serious for over 3 years. I've learned not to trust men who show interest in me. Call it cynicism, but I often feel like they have ulterior motives," she shared. "That's unfortunate," I responded, feeling a pang of sympathy. "I was hoping for a ride back to the condo. Does that mean you don't trust me, you big idiot?" she playfully teased. "I'm sorry if I seemed insensitive. I didn't mean to. It's just hard for me to relate," I apologized, feeling a bit embarrassed. "All right, let's just relax. We have a party to attend," she changed the subject, steering the conversation towards lighter topics. Later that evening, we ended up at a cocktail party in a prestigious hotel. She attracted all the attention, everyone treating her like royalty. Meanwhile, I did my best to blend in, feeling out of place in my New York street clothes. Initially, Letitia felt obliged to stick by my side, but I encouraged her to enjoy herself and let me fade into the background, where I felt more comfortable. However, she kept checking on me throughout the night. I ended up chatting with a couple of Hispanic gentlemen, cattle ranchers from Argentina. Our conversation started with soccer and eventually turned to fishing. Despite my limited knowledge, I tried to keep up, mostly nodding and smiling along. Then the topic shifted to investments when Ramon York brought up his interest in winter wheat. I listened intently as he explained his plans, though I couldn't help but wonder how someone with his apparent wealth could invest in something he seemed to know so little about. My confusion showed on my face. "Mr. Simmons, your expression tells me you're not on board with the winter wheat investment idea," Ramon observed, catching me off guard. My attempt to remain unnoticed had failed miserably. "I apologize, Ramon. I'm not really savvy when it comes to investing, and this topic is a bit beyond my expertise," I admitted, opting for a casual first-name basis to ease my discomfort. "But I have a feeling you've got some thoughts on the matter," Ramon persisted, trapping me into sharing my opinion. Feeling cornered, I mustered a weak smile. "I think I need another drink," I deflected, buying myself some time. For the next hour, I listened as an Alabama greengrocer elaborated on the promising winter wheat crop in Alberta and Saskatchewan, countering the poor harvest in the States. His explanation was thorough, but my mind struggled to keep up with the complexities of the discussion. Just when I was running out of witty remarks, Letitia came to my rescue, whisking me away from the intense conversation. As we walked off, she questioned me about the unexpected turn of events. "What was that all about, Alan? We were just chatting about food groceries," she remarked, with a hint of amusement, flashing a small smile in my direction. The following morning, we flew back to New York, where a swarm of photographers awaited Letitia's arrival. A courier from Towers and Burns handed me a package containing the coins I had left behind. After bidding Letitia farewell, I made my way to the commuter train terminal, headed back to Huntsville. The divorce proceedings and the sale of the house unfolded according to plan. Phil Williams from the main office had left me multiple messages, urging me to consider relocating to the company's headquarters in New York. This time, I agreed. John, overwhelmed, also reached out, asking for a lunch meeting at work. I tucked myself into my locker, bidding farewell to my colleagues. As I prepared for my upcoming move to a newspaper, I noticed a photo of Clayton and Marcy at a local politician's barbecue, looking like the perfect couple. With 3 weeks left, I spent a whole day scanning and identifying the coins from the bag I brought back from New York. Determined to maximize their value, I decided to list them on eBay as soon as possible. As long as I didn't encounter any shady characters, everything should go smoothly. It took an entire day to create those coin listings, along with preparing envelopes and labels for shipping. All the payments went into my PayPal account and then off to my new offshore bank. With the weekend ahead, I finally had some time to relax. My Friday lunch with John Simard was interesting. He seemed pleased that Clayton was involved, but wasn't happy that I didn't benefit from the deal. Trying to explain it to him would have been a headache. Lunch went well, and as he was leaving, he handed me the deeds to 5 acres of land on the outskirts of town. It seems good deeds do get rewarded. Not long after parting ways with John, my cell phone buzzed. Cindy and Sandy were landing in Nashville in a couple of hours, giving me plenty of time to pick them up. They chose Nashville because the airfare was cheaper than flying into Huntsville, and they were watching their expenses. It was easy to get there and pick them up. Cindy couldn't wait to talk about ILSH. The lecture hall was packed with over 300 students for an advanced corporate finance course. Mid-lecture, the professor paused to introduce Letitia to the class, and she entered confidently. After speaking to the class for about 10 minutes, she invited 2 students to lunch at the Western Hotel. We were shocked when she called out our names. "So, what did you guys think of her?" I asked as we hit the road. "She's amazing, Dad." "How did you even get to meet her?" Cindy blurted out, amazed. "Well, she mentioned she needed a personal assistant and I seemed to fit the bill," I joked, earning a nudge from Sandy. "That's not funny, Dad. Be serious," she scolded. "All right, what did you guys talk about at lunch?" I asked, steering the conversation back. She was curious about our classes and coursework, Sandy replied with a chuckle. And she had a lot of questions about you. We got the feeling she's interested in more than just friendship, Cindy added with a sly grin. But why you, Dad? She could have any guy, Sandy pondered, furrowing her brows. Yeah, think about it. From where we stand, you're a catch. But Letitia Rothberg doesn't know you like we do, remember? Even Mom didn't seem to know you that well, Cindy chimed in, her tone turning serious. The atmosphere between us grew heavy after my unintentional jab about their mother. I hadn't meant to sour the mood or turn them against her. I apologized, feeling the weight of my words. Your mom's a gem, and I shouldn't have said that. Don't worry, Dad. We understand more than you realize, Cindy reassured me with a gentle smile. We rode in silence for a while, until just as we crossed into Alabama, Sandy's phone rang. Hey, yeah, we got here about an hour ago. Great, no way. That's fantastic news. I'll let him know. Thanks for telling us. Talk to you later. Bye, Sandy said, ending the call with a grin. Looking in the rearview mirror, I saw Sandy giving Cindy a thumbs up. What's that about? I asked, curious. Leaning over the front seat, Sandy spilled the beans. Guess what, Daddy? Letitia is coming to Huntsville Tuesday morning. She expects you to cover the expenses for the night and serve up breakfast in bed, she exclaimed. I was flattered by the news, but also felt pressure from Letitia, and now my daughters. It all sounded fantastic, and I hoped I was up for the challenge, not just for this one thing. The weekend with the girls went smoothly. They spent Saturday afternoon with their mom, but Clayton was a no-show. I asked them to keep Letitia a secret from their mom. We sorted through all the stuff they wanted to leave at the house, and by the time they left, everything was sorted out. On the drive back to Nashville, I made a promise they made me swear to try to get along with Letitia. When I asked what they meant, Cindy chimed in, just don't tick her off. Simple enough. They were excited about my move to town, but I still couldn't understand what Letitia wanted from an old guy who didn't even own a suit that was in style. Back home, I relaxed with a beer and the Sunday paper. No snapshots of Marcy and Clayton this week, but there was a blurb about Keystone Development hitting a snag with local financing. Winter wheat futures were plummeting in value, which caught my interest. I called up Terry Davis and invited him over. It wasn't a fancy lunch, but a couple of cold ones and a chat would suffice. Clayton Manning had a checkered past, to say the least. He'd been on a roller coaster ride of wealth and debt, dodging creditors and friends who lent him money. His latest project was failing, and people who backed him were disappearing. I don't think beer ever tasted so good. Monday morning turned out better than expected. The coins I put up for auction fetched a better price than I had imagined. The appraiser valued the coins at around $300,000. They didn't seem like they'd be worth that much, but they easily could have fetched over $200,000 in just a little over 2 weeks. I'll be free. If you asked me 3 months ago, I'd have thought it was a nightmare. But today, I'm eagerly anticipating it. The folks buying the house had sorted out the financing and were ready to seal the deal. It struck me as funny how comfortable Marcy felt with Clayton, that she didn't need any of our shared stuff. I wondered if she grasped how uncertain her future was. At 3, I had a meeting with the buyers of the house. A fat $200,000 check went straight into my offshore account. They had no objections to me staying in the house for another week, which worked out for both of us. The next morning I got a call. Before I even had my morning coffee, an unknown caller officially informed me that Miss Rothberg would be landing at 10:45 a.m. on Delta Flight 724. I arrived 30 minutes early, feeling a bit nervous. Some paparazzi had caught wind of her arrival and were camping outside the terminal. I tried my best to lay low. I parked in short-term parking, not expecting all this fuss. Instead of waiting for me to pick her up, she chose to walk alongside me behind the car. Naturally, the photographers caught my license plate, and the secret was out. I'm not used to all this attention, but Letitia seemed unfazed by it. She even apologized to me for it. On our way home, I couldn't help but remember how, as she stepped off the plane, I had the urge to kiss her. Silly old man. I felt sheepish about the emptiness of the house. Over the past few months, I'd gotten rid of everything I could. The only things left were the essentials that the new owner had agreed to take over once I left. My guests found my attempts to apologize amusing. There wasn't a crumb in the house, so we swung by Taco Bell for a quick bite, her choice. I promised her some dreamland ribs for dinner. It was refreshing to be around a woman with a hearty appetite. I expressed my confusion to Letitia about her presence, mentioning my assumption that she would be back to her usual routine. Letitia clarified that her visit was business-related, with a chuckle. She informed me that she had heard about my upcoming move to New York and offered her spare room for me to stay temporarily. She mentioned arranging for a moving truck to help with the relocation. When I asked how she found out about my move, she casually replied that it was her knack to pay attention to details. In a playful manner, I joked about her possibly being in cahoots with my daughters, but acknowledged that it would be hard for me to look sneaky. Despite being caught off guard by her offer, I couldn't find a reason to decline it and agreed to start packing with her. I had imagined she'd be more comfortable in a fancy boardroom or a posh bank, but she seemed content just shooting the breeze with me. Still, I couldn't shake off the slight awkwardness due to our age difference. As we sorted through my belongings, we ended up tossing out more stuff than we kept. She had strong opinions about my closet, and she didn't budge. Despite my pleas for mercy, she promised to take me shopping for some decent clothes once I got settled in New York. Once we finished packing, there were more boxes than would fit in my car, but not quite enough for a moving van. I hoped she had arranged for a small truck. I set aside my laptop and a little inkjet printer to check on an eBay auction. We were just about to sit down for dinner when another surprise popped up. A delivery van pulled up in front of the house. Letitia and I watched as the driver, dressed smartly, hopped out with a clipboard. "Are you Alan Simmons?" he asked. "I've got a delivery for you. Where do you want it?" "What in the world is this?" I muttered, puzzled. "It's for Mr. Ramon Jordan," the driver explained. "Got space in the garage." The spot where Marcy's Volvo used to sit was now vacant. I pointed in that direction and nodded. I caught Letitia covering her mouth, trying to stifle her laughter. I guess she found my confusion amusing. 5 minutes later, I was staring at a sleek orange sports car parked next to my old Volvo. "What in the world is this?" I exclaimed. With a hint of pride, the courier declared, "This here's a 28 Lamborghini Gallardo Spider Superleggera, a model. Ain't she a beauty?" Letitia could hardly contain her giggles. She wasn't causing a scene, but it was evident she was thoroughly enjoying herself. I signed off on the delivery and watched the courier leave in his fancy getup. I had no clue what I'd do with my new gift, but one thing was certain: I wasn't hauling it all the way to New York. Miss Funnypants here can keep her fancy wheels. My guest still had a smile plastered across her face as we drove off. I ordered up a full rack of ribs and a couple of brews. "Care to fill me in on the deal with the car?" I asked, curious. "Ramon. Big on winter wheat. Everyone thought he was nuts as prices started to tank, but he doubled down on contracts, and in less than a week, he raked in over $40 million, she explained. He was pleased with the cash, but the compliments about his clever move made him even happier. "Well, good for Ramon. Hope he didn't drop my name," I remarked. "Apparently he wanted to give you credit, but only if you were cool with it. He thanked me for bringing you to the party and wanted your address. I didn't know he planned to do that, though." As the ribs arrived, I watched Letitia dunk a few into Tabasco sauce before digging in. "Man, I adore that girl." "You know I'll be sending this back tomorrow, right?" I asked. "That's what I figured. No worries. Ramon won't be offended. He would have offered the money outright, but he probably thought you'd decline. That way you'd feel more obliged to keep it. We had to order extra beers because of all that Tabasco. I was feeling good and didn't want the night to end. At that moment, I would have given anything to spend the night with this gorgeous young lady. I envied those smooth, charming guys who could charm any girl into bed in a heartbeat. All I could hope for was a goodnight kiss. We couldn't chat all night, so eventually I had to head home. The next morning was fantastic. Turns out all my worrying was for nothing. As soon as we stepped into the house, Letitia grabbed my hand and led me to the bedroom. Being the gentleman I am, I made sure to tend to her needs first, and in return, I was treated to the best night of passion in my secluded life. Breakfast in bed was simple juice, coffee, and a Danish. "Sorry, it's the best I can do under the circumstances," I apologized. "It's perfect," she assured me, although eating off a tray in bed isn't as comfy as it sounds. After a few laughs and some adjustments, we relocated to the kitchen. "Breakfast in bed sounds fancier than it really is, Letitia," I chuckled. "Not to spoil the mood, but I'm curious why you chose me. I don't have much to offer and you deserve someone great. I've been burned by slick, charming lovers before. I won't fall for that again, she explained. I get it. You're into me because I'm not a player or an idiot, I replied. She found this amusing and chuckled. She said, Alan, I was impressed with your deal with James in New York. I replied with a shrug. Just sold some coins, nothing major. She then added, I found your plan to buy trust land intriguing. Smirking, I responded, Me? A philanthropist? Nah. I see myself as a cunning guy who took advantage of a unique situation to mess with his wife's lover. She laughed, and I couldn't help but smile too. I was amazed at her intelligence and how well she hid it. Was that a mistake on my part? I asked. No, Alan, that was brilliant, she reassured me. Her curiosity about me was piqued, and she wanted to learn more. You couldn't possibly have known what I was up to in New York, I protested. True. When I found out later, she admitted. You were checking up on me, weren't you? I realized I'm not naive. Admittedly, the boost to my self-esteem felt good. Unfortunately, Letitia had an early morning flight back to New York. Saying goodbye was tough, however. She left me feeling content and even entrusted me with the key to her apartment. The dealer couldn't pick up the Lamborghini until the next day, but that was fine since I had no intention of driving it. The movers arrived with a small truck to transport my belongings to New York. Terry Davis called with troubling news about Keystone Development's financial woes. Clayton had lost most of its backers almost overnight, and rumors swirled about missing funds. That evening, my almost ex-wife paid a surprise visit. So what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? I inquired. I need to talk to you about some things, she replied. I'm leaving in a few days, but I'll help you in any way I can. Noticing the absence of my old Volvo, Marcy questioned the orange car in the garage. Sorry, Marcy, I sold the Volvo back to the dealer after you said you didn't want it. As for the orange car, it was a gift, but I plan to return it tomorrow, I explained. Marcy was surprised by this term of affection. Curious about the expensive gift, she speculated if it came from my new girlfriend. No, it was a gesture of gratitude from a cattle rancher I helped, I clarified. As the conversation shifted, Marcy hesitated before asking about the money from the house sale. It's all gone, I admitted. You said you didn't want anything, so I used the money to set up my new apartment for the move. Marcy seemed puzzled, but accepted the explanation. When asked about my destination, I disclosed my upcoming move to New York for a new job and a significant raise. However, I chose not to mention my plan to live with Letitia. I wasn't planning on spilling the beans about the Cayman bank account either. You never mentioned what happened to the apartment? She queried. It was just leased. The lease ran out and the owner didn't want to renew it, I clarified. Where are you living now? She asked further. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Clayton finds us a new place, I informed her. I understand now, I commented, grasping Marcy's motives for wanting to move into our old house. She seemed a bit puzzled. I see, she responded, appearing uncertain. It was clear she needed assistance but was hesitant to ask. As the conversation paused, I offered, Is there anything else I can do for you? Marcy hesitated before requesting, Could you give me a ride to the Holiday Inn? The ride started smoothly, but then Marcy brought up my girlfriend. Tell me about her, she pressed. She's not exactly a girlfriend, more like a business partner, I explained. What kind of business? She probed. We're not into any business, to be honest. I'm just a clerk at the grocery store, I admitted. Marcy remained silent, gazing out the window, and muttered, Rascal, under her breath. At that moment, I had the perfect chance, to my frustration, to let her know how much those newspaper pictures hurt me. But instead, I chose to keep silent and smiled inwardly. Seeing Marcy in distress, I felt a twinge of guilt, but it passed quickly as I dropped her off at the motel entrance. She departed without a backward glance or a goodbye. Despite feeling a pang of regret, there was also a strange sense of satisfaction. Thursday morning brought an unexpected delivery, the final divorce papers. They arrived earlier than expected, but I wasn't complaining. On the front page of the Huntsville paper, there was a photo of Letitia Rothberg arriving at the airport, accompanied by her sincere friend. Each room at the Holiday Inn received a complimentary newspaper, so Marcy would undoubtedly stumble upon it. During breakfast, I emptied the safety deposit box at the bank, ready to move forward. My 7 pennies will definitely come in handy soon. During Letitia's visit, I expected her to inquire about them, but she never brought it up. All our discussions were purely social. Now I'm bringing up the topic of the auction prices. More than half of the coins were sold at that price, so I spent the rest of the day packaging and getting them ready for shipment. The remaining auctions had to close by noon on Friday. If all the PayPal payments go through smoothly, I'll be able to mail out all the coins the same day. Any dubious buyers will have to wait until bright and early on Saturday morning. I hit the road. Most of the money from my PayPal account got transferred to my Cayman account. I kept a small amount on PayPal just in case I wanted to make an impulse purchase. As I was leaving, the buyers of the house arrived, making it a win-win situation for both of us. The drive up north would take about 12 hours without any delays. Letitia was waiting in the apartment and promised to whip up a homemade dinner for my return. I wondered who would be cooking it. It was reassuring to know that I still had what it takes to capture the heart of such a stunning woman. I was confident I could meet all her expectations. Just as I was crossing into Virginia on Interstate 81, Cindy gave me a call. It turns out Clayton Manning had skipped town, leaving Marcy stranded without a car or a place to stay.